Assalamu alaikum. Hi everyone. How are you doing? We all, a lot of people in my network try to say, I want to change the world. And today I heard a very interesting quotation from Dr. Pastor William Devlin, and we will talk more about this. And that's the topic of today on how do we change the world. My favorite quotation on the entrance of my door, there's a big sign and it says, I used to be very smart and I tried to change the world. Then I became a little wise and I tried to change myself. And today the topic is all about how we can change ourselves. I met Pastor William Devlin last year at the United States presidential breakfast in Washington, D.C.,
Mhm.
which happens every year. The President of the United States invites a lot of people to come and have breakfast with him, and it's called the Prayer Breakfast. They have a lovely documentary about them now. It's called The Family on Netflix, if you guys are interested in learning more about it. I found out today that Pastor Devlin has not eaten anything in the last 33 days. And I am so intrigued and excited. And when today, I'm trying to eat once a day now. I
Mm.
did a 3-day fast, and since then, when I was learning about the fasting, about eating nothing, only water, the water
Yeah.
fast. One of the things which one of the teacher was explaining was the difference between the hunger and the mind hunger. Is it the habit or is it
Yeah.
really the hunger? And now, since I have done the 3-day fast, I understand when I'm hungry or when it's just my mind playing games on me that I'm hungry. And I will tell you a little bit more about why I did it and why I'm asking you to talk about it. A few
Yeah.
years ago, I met a friend in Germany, and he told me that he only eats once a day. And I was like, "What? I live for food. I
Yes.
have to eat 3 times a day." And as you know, in a lot of countries, especially in our country, in Pakistan, we don't have bars, we don't have clubs, we don't have a lot of social activities. So the only social activity we have is food. And
Yes.
just like in other parts of the world, food plays a very important part of
Hmm.
life, of guests, of journeys of human beings. Before Jesus said, let's break bread, or
Yeah.
breaking the bread is very important in all cultures, I would say.
Hmm.
So he told me he only eats once a day, and I was very intrigued about it. And then I learned about the 10-day fast, where people don't eat anything for 10 days. But to be honest, today is the first time in my life I've heard that you can go on for 40 days without any food. And you are a living example in front of us, sitting, looking
Mm.
like Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan, uh, so thin and so petite. And after eating 30 days and shedding 50 pounds of
Hmm.
weight in 33 days, tell us more about it. What got into you? Which bug
Well,
ate you?
and there's great joy in my soul, Rehan. There's great joy in my soul. So, I, Rehan, you've been a dear friend, a great friend. You've introduced me to a lot of folks, and I'm just deeply appreciative of that. And I really have two words for fasting. Fasting. And it's the first word is stop, and the second word is eating. Stop eating. People often ask me, Pastor William, how do you do this? And it's actually a very long journey. I'm an international humanitarian, and I was transformed. I'm also a follower of Jesus Messiah, and I was transformed by his power, Jesus Messiah, in 1971, perhaps long before most of your viewers and listeners were born. And the man who was basically, we would call it in as followers of Jesus, we would call it discipling or mentoring or training. And he began to give me, I mean, here I was like 4 months after I was transformed. I was an atheist before that. I'm 18 years old, and he said, you need to read these books on fasting. And I was like, well, what's that? And the number of books that he gave me, and as I began to do deeper research, I found that these women and men who were regular fasters, and the emphasis on regular and the emphasis on faster, they changed the world. And I was like, my goodness, if they can do that, and they're just simple people, I can do that. So I began fasting for 1 day a week. And then over the years, I would do 3 days a week, and then 5 days a week. And then I would do 10 days a week. And then back about 13 years ago, there was huge gun violence in America. I mean, people, every city, Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, LA. And I said, Jesus Messiah said, I want to change the world. I'm going to do a 40-day water only fast. And that was in 2007. And then I did one again in 2012 for another issue that was facing New York City. And it was surrounding the area of justice. And, I began to understand how Mahatma Gandhi changed the world, whether you like his approach or not. But then also Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And then there's another gentleman in England, and actually in Wales, by the name of Rees Howells. And then this year, I was actually out in Minneapolis when the fires were still burning. I'm part of what we call the Jesus SWAT team. So wherever there's a suicide bombing around the world, wherever there is a mass shooting, or there's the violence that happened out in Minneapolis where George Floyd was killed, myself and my African-American colleague, we hop on a plane or a train or a boat or a car, and we go to that place of violence. And Rehan, we pray for the peace of the city, as Prophet Jeremiah did in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible. And the day that I left, so I know I'm going to be in the middle of chaos, right? There's looting, there's rioting, there's fires, there's angry, violent people. I mean, there's a lot of peaceful people, but I said, and we said, we're going to bring the peace to the city of Minneapolis. And that day, on May 28th, 2020, I decided to go on a fast that would last a week, because we went from Minneapolis to pray for the peace of the city. Then we went to Philadelphia, and then we went to 3 locations in New York City: Harlem, Times Square, Union Square. And we just go into these thousands of people. We go to the organizers that are up front with bullhorns, and we say, hey, look, we're 2 pastors from New York City. We want to pray for the peace of the city. So then I had to quarantine myself for 15 days. So I was in a little cabin by myself because I didn't want to infect my family, because at these rallies and these protests, there's no social distancing. And so I went another 15 days. And then at that point, I said, let me go 40 days. So here we are, June 30th, and I haven't eaten since the evening of May 28th. So how do you do it? Well, you just make a commitment and you say, I want to change the world. I want to change the world. And then every day, the first 2 days are the hardest. The last 2 days are the hardest, because, the first 2 days, like you were saying, a mind fast or a body fast, your brain in the first 2 days, your brain, Rehan, is yelling at your stomach and saying, and asking your stomach through the network, the hypothalamus, etc. Where's the energy? Where's the energy? And you have to say to your stomach and your brain, well, there's none to come for another 37 days. And then it's tough at the end because you're thinking about food again. But you see, for the last 20 or 30 years, I go without food Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I don't eat. I fast for those 3 days every week. Every week I go without food. And then I'm looking to change the world, number one, but I'm also looking for an opportunity to grow closer to Jesus Messiah. And there have been biblical fasts, and I call this a public fast. Like in the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, Esther called for a public fast to save her race from destruction. Uh, the prophet Nehemiah called for a fast. They were rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, and he called for a fast. So there are private fasts and there are public fasts. So this is a public fast, and frankly, Rehan and your viewers, I'm doing this as an example to other people that you can change the world by fasting and prayer. And then finally, so change the world, closer walk with Jesus Messiah. Number three, I want to remember the poor. And I'm going to give you some things that I do to remember the poor. And you may think I'm a little crazy, but it's really helped me to remember the poor, to remember the forgotten, to remember the widows around the world, to remember the orphans, to remember the broken, the forgotten, the wounded, the lost. The UN tells us there are 62 million people that are currently displaced from their homes. And, if you want to talk about the Rohingya or the Uyghurs, or the Syrians, the Iraqis, on and on and on and on. And so I want to remember the poor. So what do? I fast 3 days a week. I also sleep on the floor of our bedroom 4 nights a week because when I go overseas, as I said, I'm an international humanitarian. So when I go overseas, I sleep in the refugee camps. And, when I'm in Iraqi Kurdistan, I'm in Zaho, I'm in Duhok, I sleep with the IDPs in the camps. So when I come home, I sleep on the floor, a hard floor, 4 out of the 7 days a week with permission of my wife of 40 years. And then also the other thing I do is I don't wear socks. I haven't worn socks for years. And every time I go to a meeting, I mean, it might be very cold in New York City, where I'm based out of, and people will say, Pastor, Dr. William, where are your socks? And then that gives me an avenue to talk about my passion for remembering the poor. So I'm sure you have some questions, but I'm going to give the reality of long-term fasting. Long-term fasting, it's hard, but you have to be disciplined, and you have to say, God has given me a deadline. Like my deadline is July 7th, a week from today at 12 midnight. And because I've made a promise to God and to Jesus Messiah, I do not want to violate that commitment, that trust to him, because he's put so much trust and commitment and faithfulness to me. So it's unusual, Rehan, because I don't start out like this. I'll say, okay, I'll do 5 days, I'll do 10 days. And then when I get to 20 days, and I'll say to myself, well, Lord, I'm halfway there. So also, when and I'm going to go in a different direction. When you fast this long, you actually almost leave the human realm and you dive into the spiritual realm. I mean, I've looked out late at night, and I believe that I've seen angels in the front of my house. Now, I cannot explain that. It's just a glimpse. But there's and of course, when I talk with this in a church, people never invite me back. But there is this great joy. I have more joy today, Rehan, than I do when I'm eating. Why? It's self-denial. It's self-denial. I'm denying myself. I'm putting the poor first. You know, how often do we put the poor first? How often? Now that's my full-time job, is I work amongst the poor. It's not a job, it's a passion. So, but how do we remember the poor? You know, here in America, and I know at some levels in Pakistan, other countries, I mean, we have so much. We have so much. So, another practical thing I do is I do not take a salary from my organization. And with approval of my board of directors, and all the money that comes in, and I'm small. I'm small. I probably raise about $200,000 a year through an organization called Redeem, and then I have another organization called, wait for it, Widows and Orphans. There's a book in the New Testament that says serving widows and orphans is true religion. So I want my faith and my following of Jesus Messiah to be true. People hate hypocrites, right, Rehan? I mean, if you're saying one thing and doing another, you're an absolute hypocrite. So as I post my journey with a 40-day fast, and I'm so grateful for the time to spend with you today, because I'm radical and reckless when it comes to living life, and I want to change the world. I say that the 3 R's of faith are radical, reckless, and raw. Not reading, writing, and arithmetic, but radical, reckless, and raw. You know, if your faith is not genuine, if my faith is not authentic, and if it's not real, authentic, genuine, that spells in English RAG, rag. So I want to be a rag for Jesus Messiah. I want to be real. I want to be authentic. I want to be genuine. And then I want to get mad. I want to make a difference. MAD. I want to make a difference. And so I've seen lives changed, and I've seen things change because of these long-term fasts. Because, and again, I'm speaking in a Jesus Messiah context, but I always say praying is knocking on the door of heaven, right? Praying is knocking on the door of heaven. But fasting, you'll love this. Fasting is banging on the door of heaven. God, answer my prayer. So I've got a sledgehammer now. I've got a battering ram on the door of heaven. Not that there is one, but, you know, uh, metaphorically speaking. So I'm serious, Rayon. I have more joy right now as I'm sitting going into day 34 with nothing to have in my body. And of course, you know, I've lost 50 pounds, which is fine. I'm okay. And I'm being monitored by a physician. So I want to add, you know, if fasting is medically contraindicated, check with your physician. But I just have like super powered joy in my life. And now, you know, other people think that, you know, I'm a little crazy, but I'll conclude with this. You know, Moses went on a 40-day water only fast. And by the way, I'm not taking vitamins. You know, I don't cheat on my fast. Uh, I don't sit outside a restaurant and breathe deeply and get those molecules from the smoke. I don't take any supplements, no juice, water only. And one of the ways that I pursue this is I'm always drinking hot water, because it just gives you a sense of fullness. So, you know, that's one of the items that I use. But, you know, Moses did a 40-day water only fast. And check this out, Jesus Messiah, he did a 40-day water only fast in the Judean wilderness. And that's because at the end of that day, and it's in the New Testament, it says, after the fast, on the 41st day, the angels of heaven came and ministered to Jesus Messiah. I mean, what did they do? Did they, you know, bring him takeout? Did they, you know, what did they do? And then that same day, the 41st day after Jesus Messiah fast, he started his public ministry. So I also encourage people, look, if you've got to make a major decision, if you're single and you're trying to figure out if that young, beautiful woman is going to be your wife for the rest of your life, maybe you ought to fast for 5 days. If so, that's basically it. I could go on and on. There's a great book written by an English author by the name of Arthur Wallis, Wallis, and there's used copies around because nobody bought the book. But it's called, and I love the title, God's Chosen Fast. Sometimes, so again, those are all the reasons, and I'd be happy to expand. But I love to fast. I love to fast. And it's just a glorious time. So I encourage you and your viewers to do it. Look at what Dr. King did. He changed the world. Look at what our brother Gandhi did. He changed the world. Rees Howells in England. So I have a long list of women and men who changed the world simply by fasting. Not yet in this generation, but in previous generations. But you know what, Rehan? Here's my goal. I'm going to be the one in this generation. How's that for a concluding note?
I have no words, and since you have a lot of wisdom and words, please tell us more. I mean, I am just speechless. My jaw is about to drop. My whole mind doesn't stop working because one of the one of the things we cry about. Oh, look at this person! He hasn't eaten anything in 3 days, and we start begging money for them, and we just go insane because of hunger. And I was just talking to my kids, and I'm so excited. I'm going to meet best pastor, and he hasn't eaten anything in 33 days. That's fun. I don't have to worry about food for so many days. Oh my God. I don't have to think about what am I going to eat or what, anything. It's just like, I just save some more time. So if you have more words,
yeah.
please.
Well, your kid, Rehan, your kids are brilliant. Your kids are brilliant. You want to know why? Because when you're not eating, you're. I mean, think about it. What do we spend most of our life doing? Like you said in the intro, eating, right? And so, because I spend most of my life in the Middle East, Central Asia, and East Africa, you're right. The whole culture is centered around food. And so when I'm fasting those 3 days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I'll be in Iraq and they have this huge meal. And this used to happen 10 years ago. And I would apologize and say, I'm deeply sorry, but I'm fasting and I'm not going to eat. So they were like, wait a minute, I prepared this for you. And I said, I'm sorry, I made a commitment to Jesus Messiah. Well, now when I go over, they say, don't come to my house Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. Just come on the days you're eating. So, and my family, my bride of 40 years and my family, they're with me. But think about how much time we spend shopping for food, preparing for food, and eating food. And then let's jump to our physical energy. What do we spend the most of our energy on that, we're not exercising, etc.? We spend it on digesting food. That's why after you eat a big meal, of curry rice and some other things, what do? You get sleepy, right? You want to go to sleep after a big meal in the evening. And so when you fast, you need very little sleep, maybe 3 hours, 4 hours, and then you're up. And because all the blood in your physiological system is not in your gut, but it's up here, then I am more alert every day during these 33 days. I can think clearly. Every once in a while, I get a little fuzzy, but then, I'll drink 3 bottles of water and I'm good. So think about that. And you just, instead of just going 18 hours a day, you're going 20 hours a day or 21 hours a day. So you're not spending all that time shopping, preparing, eating, and then you're physically alert all the time, and it's really wonderful. uh so people say, well, I live to eat. I live to eat. Well, I turn that around and I just eat to live. And so there are some practical things as well. And in America, particularly after COVID, here's another practical application. And I'm a practical guy. I'm like I am like Velcro. You know what Velcro is? Everything sticks to Velcro. Teflon. Some people are Teflon human beings. Some people are Velcro human beings. Teflon, everything slips off. In other words, you don't apply anything. But when I began teaching on fasting around the world, and I've done it in Gaza and Sudan, in Iraq, many other places, uh, and and think about this: 1 in 3 Americans now, after 3 months of quarantine and eating tons of comfort food, it used to be 1 in 4 Americans are obese. Now it's 1 in 3 Americans. So I'm also a health coach, and I tell my people that are part of my health coaching team. I said, if you want to do the Pastor William diet and you want to lose 50 pounds, just go without it. Then they say, well, what's your diet? Stop eating for 30 days. And so again, I feel more alive inside and outside. In other words, my physical body. And there are so many obese Americans that, and then there's comorbidity. Hypertension comes along. I'm also a registered nurse. Hypertension comes along, type 2 diabetes, and that's it. My goodness, there it is. Wow. How'd you find that? That's a new cover. Thank you. All these comorbidities. Why did so many people die of COVID in America? Obesity. Sometimes, the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, they have a term called uh, morbid obesity. In other words, your obesity is going to lead to death. It's going to lead to your morbidity. And that particularly if you have comorbidities, which are caused by obesity, hypertension, diabetes, I mean, even pancreatic cancer, then, we've got to look at ourselves. And I love what you said, that, you thought you were smart, but then and you wanted to change the world. Then you became wise and you wanted to change yourself. So fasting changes us, I believe, spiritually, mentally, physically, our souls, our minds. And it. I used to have a problem with anger. This is many, many years ago. And when I started this disciplined regimen of fasting, I found that I became, you'll love this, Rehan, I found that I became so weak, I couldn't argue with anybody. And I would say, and men, I mean, anger is in our genes, right? Because we always think we're right. So check this out. I'm going to give you a great quote that I want you to remember. Because of my fasting, which cured me of my anger, I gave up the right to always be right. How do you like that? Because men, I mean, I can't speak for women because I aren't one, but for men, we're always mad at somebody, right? Our wife, our kids, our coworkers, our employees. I'll just speak for myself. I don't know about you, Rayan. I know you're a very calm, sweet person, but when you haven't eaten for a week, try to argue with someone. It's I here in New York City, I minister in the poorest congressional district in New York City, and I have a pastoral colleague, and he always uses the expression that he'll say something about a friend of his, and he'll say, "Yeah, that guy can't break a grape in a food fight." So when you're that weak from not eating, because obviously food is our physical power and energy, then you give up, you put up the white flag, and you just say to the person, "Thank you." Two greatest words in the international language: shukran, uh, and thank you, toda in Hebrew. And then you say, after you say thank you say to the person, "I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And Jesus Messiah loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it." So there it is. Qumran Shazad. I gave up the right to always be right. Nailed it. But can you imagine that? I mean, everybody knows somebody who always has to be right, and they will fight to the death to always be right. But when you fast, again, Rehan, I hope uh, all of you and all of your viewers are just, there are so many benefits to long-term fasting. I mean, I wish I would have written these down, but they're just kind of pouring out of my soul right now. And so build your
Let them
mind.
come. Let them come. Don't stop them. Look at them.
Thank you. It builds your soul, it builds your mind, it builds your spirit. Uh, and if you go to here's one more thing, okay? I almost forgot this, but this is your listeners. Uh, yeah, people are asking. Yes, I've only had water since May 28th, only water. When recently, probably in the last 2 to 3 years, if you go to Google Scholar, which I think most of your people probably know Google Scholar, and there are thousands of academic peer reviewed double blind studies in extant uh, uh, journals, and what they've begun to find, and two esteemed universities, USC and UCLA in California in the US, they began to study fasting in mice. Okay. Now, I know there's not a lot of comparative analysis between me and mice, but what they found is that what they call IF. So if you go to Google Scholar and you type in quote intermittent fasting close quote, you're every day you're going to get two or three peer reviewed academic studies on intermittent fasting. And Rehan, you know what they found out? They found out that when you go without food for at least 48 hours, you reboot your entire immune system. And Lord have mercy, do we need better immune systems? And of course, when you're obese, your immune system doesn't work properly because you've got so much flesh and fat for your whole system. It's like having a clogged sewer when you're obese. So now it's very interesting, and I can't get into all the details because, but briefly, they found that when they have mice fast, in other words, they're not feeding them, and then they do a research on the mice's body, draw the blood, etc., look at their lymphatic system and their immune system, etc., etc. They didn't know what happened. Well, they did know what happened, but they didn't know how or why. So what happened is it they have now find, and they're doing more studies eventually on humans, that fasting for at least 48 hours reboots your entire immune system. So check this out. So I'm in the IDP camps, right? They're all endemic. There's endemic cholera, there's endemic typhoid, there's endemic yellow fever, there's endemic Japanese encephalopathy. There's all kinds of these communicable infectious diseases. Now I get shots for them before I go over, and I always, follow the World Health Organization vaccination guidelines. But I'm around conjunctivitis, the pink eye, with, and that's epidemic within IDP children in the camps. And I'll go into camps, 21 camps in Iraqi Kurdistan, in Duhok and Zaho. I'll go in, particularly the Yazidis, the 1.5 million that have been displaced, and all kinds of sickness. And you know what, Rehan? I never get sick since I've been doing this long-term fasting. So yet there's another benefit that you reboot your immune system, and you don't get sick. I was tested for COVID-19 2 days before I left for Minneapolis. Got the results 2 days later. I was already in Minneapolis. And you've seen, all of your folks, and you have seen the pictures on CNN or whatever news organization you watch. No social distancing, no gloves, no masks, nothing. People are, I was in the middle of 5,000 people. And after I got done speaking, I said, I'm a pastor. I'm going to be in the middle of this rally, this protest that we're here remembering George Floyd, and we're praying for the peace of the city. And people would come up to me and say, "Yes, Pastor, pray for me. Pray for me." People were hugging me, Rehan. People were coughing on me, breathing on me. And I didn't wear a mask. So, out of deference to my family, our oldest daughter was giving birth to our eighth grandchild. My bride, Nancy, was going to be the primary caregiver. And we talked, and I said, "You're right. I'm not coming home for 15 days. So I went into self-isolation, self-quarantine, got tested yet again, COVID-19 negative. So I'm really, in the 20 years I've been going overseas and ministering and serving the widows, the orphans, the poor, the forgotten, the wounded, the broken, and the lost, I've never been sick. So my children, we have 5 children, and they're all in their 20s and 30s. And when I come in, uh, they always ask me, "Dad, how come you never get sick? You're never sick in any way, shape, or form." So, uh, and I don't take vitamins. I don't take supplements. All that. I'm not into homeopathy and so forth. So I just think it's the power of Jesus Messiah in my life, and how I've trained my body. Isn't that interesting? When we think of fitness, we're thinking of the treadmill, we're thinking of walking, and all those things are good, or lifting weights or whatever you do. But how about long-term fasting as a means of training our human bodies? Wouldn't that, Rehan, I'd love to start a revolution in this. But, yeah, when, when I'm invited to speak at locations, and they say, "Look, you can talk about anything, Pastor Dr. William, but don't talk about fasting, okay? It's not going to go over well, and nobody will do it." I said, "Well, so if I get 1 out of 1,000, I'm happy as a clam in high tide. Uh, I'm I'm just very happy." So, but remember, revolutions always start with one, right? Like you were mentioning, the father of Pakistan. It started with him. And I've been to Lahore. I've been to Sialkot. I've been to Rawalpindi. I've been to Faisalabad. I've been to Islamabad. It was I can't wait to get back. So, and I'll see you, Rehan. And so those are all the many, many benefits of fasting, and particularly long-term fasting. But if you can only do 2 days and make it a regular weekly discipline, so you're going to reboot your immune system, and then you can train yourself to go 5 days, then 10, then 15, 20. What I encourage people to do on a practical level is, like, for example, tomorrow go, instead of eating 3 meals, and I love the fact, Rehan, that you only eat once a day. And again, when you're not eating, you're also remembering the poor. I mean, think that they say that the COVID-19, that more people are going to die from hunger than they do from COVID-19. And that was my colleague David Beasley, who's head of the World Food Program. He gave a speech before the Secretary General and the council there of all the, not all the nations, but the Security Council. And he said, people who are earning $2 a day, they're now not able to buy food for their family. It's been 3 months, and $2 a day will feed their family. Well, the government has closed their stores, rightly so. But he said, right now, the World Food Program does not have the capacity to feed everybody. I mean, they're feeding 100 million people every day. And he feels that that's David Beasley, who's the head of the World Food Program, a colleague of mine. So you're remembering the poor. So tomorrow, if you eat 3 meals a day, take away 1 meal. And then a week from now, take away 2 meals. And then now we're into your third week. Take away 3 meals, which mean you'll be fasting for a day. Now, you're going to get headaches. You're going to be grumpy, okay? Because we get, people say, man, I missed lunch today. I can't wait to get home for dinner. And I say, okay, yeah, I missed lunch 34 days ago. So do you feel the joy coming out? Do you feel the joy coming out? This joy that I have right now, it's from long-term fasting. So then in your third week, you're going 1 day without food, and then do that for another 2 weeks. So now you've built yourself up, you're training yourself, and then begin going. So you've gone for 3 weeks, you've gone 1 day without food. And then now you're actually 6 weeks in, right? If you're following me. And then on the seventh week, try to go a day without food and 1 meal out of your three the following day, and build that progression. And it'll work for you. If you don't have uh, comorbidities, if it's not medically contraindicated, I haven't looked into this, but I hear from people when I talk to them about long-term fasting, they say, yeah, that's what cancer dies from. Cancer feeds on sugar. Sugar, uh, if and I gave up sugar 45 years ago because it's particularly white sugar, but I gave up all sugars and to remember the poor. But when you think about it, when you eat carbohydrates, that's turned into sugar, and then that's feeding the cancer. So I don't have all, that's anecdotal. I don't have all the academic research in front of me, but it's something to be considered. And again, that's how you do military training. People who are triathloners, marathoners, what do? They train their bodies every day. Uh, uh, People who are in the military, they train their minds and their body and their skills every day. Well, what are we doing to train our bodies? What are we doing to train our minds? What are we doing to train our spirits? What are we doing to train our souls? I mean, how many people do you know are training their souls? Isn't that an interesting concept? How many people are training their spiritual lives, in my case, to be closer to Jesus Messiah and to remember the poor, to live a healthier life? I want to have a healthy mind, a healthy body, a healthy soul, and a healthy spirit. Not for myself. I mean, yeah, it's good for me, but I don't want to be narcissistic or self-centered. I do it for my bride and my children. I do it for the IDPs. I do it for the poor, the wounded, the forgotten, the broken, the lost that I work with overseas. And let me give you one more example. about changing the world. I work in an area of East Africa called East Pokot, Pokot. It has one of the highest incidences of FGM, female genital mutilation, and child marriage. It's in that belt from West Africa all the way over to Somalia and Somaliland. And FGM and child marriage have been a part of this culture for thousands of years. So the young girls are mutilated at age 8, even to a procedure that they call fibulation, where everything is cut off of their private parts, sewn up, and then their parents sell them for 30 head of cattle to the highest bidder. And so women are not second class citizens in that society at East Pokot, they're third class citizens. Uh, so I began to go in there with a Christian bishop from Nairobi, and 3 years ago, and because of prayer and fasting and building schools, we have seen a cultural and community transformation. So that's, maybe you might say, well, that's a microcosm and you're talking about changing the world. Well, it has to start somewhere, right? So it starts with me, and then you become infectious about fasting and prayer, and then hopefully it'll become not a disease, but it'll become a communicable ideology that you can spread to others. So we're seeing, just in 3 years, Rehan, we're seeing a change in the culture where we're praying, we're fasting. Okay, that, you might say, well, that's on a spiritual level, but then on a practical level, God gave us, Jesus Messiah gave us the wisdom that, hey, one of the ways we can decrease the incidence of FGM and child marriage is to build schools. And the parents now say, yeah, I want to send my daughter to one of the schools that Pastor William has built there in East Pokot, and they're very rudimentary. It's 4 iron poles, a little prefab roof, and that's the school. Nothing fancy. The teachers are volunteers. So that's what I'm talking about. Changing the world. You're changing a horrific practice. You're transforming the community. And by the way, we don't go in with our steamroller. We go in with love, grace, and mercy from God, Jesus Messiah. And so those are some things. Someone just said, you should sell that, quote, dieting recipe, end of quote, Pastor, LOL. But yeah, and I'm
Here's
sure,
another question, Pastor, which says that what's your daily routine work by, how do you spend your day when you're not eating?
yeah, good question. The only thing that changes is, so I even during fasting, you got to think about this mentally. You said earlier, you have to train yourself mentally. And so I keep a full schedule, even when I'm fasting for 40 days. I'm speaking, I'm going to family functions, family birthdays, family reunions. I'm playing with my 8 grandchildren. Hanging out with my children. I am working the 2 organizations, Redeem Widows and Orphans. I'm out raising money. I'm meeting with people. I'm saying that not within the COVID, but I just keep a full schedule. There's only one thing that changes, because you're not eating and you have less sleep. Then instead of sleeping for another 2 hours, you can pray. So I'm keeping a full schedule. I'm not on top of a mountain fasting and gazing at my navel. I'm out with the people, and people say, "Well, how do you do that?" And to be honest with you, Rehan, and the person who asked the question, I cannot. I'm going to go a little bit on the edge. I hope that's okay. I cannot explain the physical power, the mental power, the spiritual power, and the soul power I have right now. I can't explain it. It's transformative. It really is a transformation in my life. So I keep a full schedule, and then instead of obtaining 6 to 8 hours of sleep, I get 3, 4, and then those other hours I get on my knees, as a follower of Jesus, and I get on my face before God, and I'm praying for all the 15 countries I'm working in, my team leaders, the people that I know, these Yazidi girls that were taken and violated and raped over 1,000 times. I'm praying for Amina. I'm praying for Bashi. I'm praying for Lamia. I'm praying for these girls by name in hopes that they will be transformed as well by the power of God, the power of Jesus Messiah. So, yeah, nothing really changes. I mean, when I was in quarantine for 15 days, I was on the phone, I was writing reports, uh, uh, just normal life. And I think really, I mean, you can get away if you want, but for me, uh, keeping my same routine, what does it do? It keeps my mind off that plate of rice I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about, wow, I'd love to have some rice and beans right now. Curry rice is my favorite in deference to my Pakistani colleagues. And but when you're busy and when you're living life as you normally would, and then I sit down with my family. I say, hey, what time you eat? Okay, I'll be there. And having food around, once you train your body, Rehan, and this is another benefit, once you train your body, because people always say, oh, I'm sorry. I was in a meeting last night, and then I walked in the door and they said, oh, we canceled dinner, Pastor, because you were coming. I said, wait a minute. I said, I've been doing fasting for like 48 years. And if you put me in front of a big heaping pot of goat stew, I wouldn't want to eat it because I've trained my mind, my body, my soul, my spirit, and I've made that commitment. I'm not going to eat until July the 7th at midnight. And then I'll start off. Here's the other thing I neglected to mention is you just start off with something soft like applesauce and hot tea or anything that's soft. You don't want to be eating meat. I don't eat meat anyway, but you don't want to be eating meat or something heavy because then you're going to get sick because your stomach doesn't know what just came down your esophagus. It hasn't seen it in 40 days. So they don't know what your stomach doesn't know what you're putting down there. So you have to start slow. And then I have to tell you, and Rehan, I love to eat. God has given us so many good things. And when I get done with fasting, you know what I say to my bride? And she'll say to me, hey, Pastor, are you done? And I'll say, yeah, I'm done. And then we'll break bread together. And then I'll close my eyes and I'll lean into my wife and I'll ask her, I'll say, Nancy, why did God make food so good to the taste? Nancy, why did God make food taste so good? And I mean, that's why we eat, right? We love our food. We love our ethnic foods. Uh, I love Pakistani food. When I was there, I ate way too much, but so it's not that I'm a hermit. It's not that I'm into self denial, but it's not like I leave the world. I don't want to leave the world to go on this fast. I want to see I want people to see me in living color, if I could say that. And they could see me in praxis, in practical outworking of the fasting and not slowing down. And then I have the opportunity because people ask me all the time, you know, how do you do it? And I say, I get the power. I get the power from God in every part of our being, in every part of my being.
So, do you feel weakness when you do this 40-day fast, actually?
Uh, I'll say, do I feel weakness? And I'll add, is Rehan in Pakistan right now? Yeah, you do. You get very weak. You also get lightheaded. I mean, think about it. Going 33 days without food, you have no fuel in your gut.
But you're
So
speaking, I mean, you're doing a show before this, and now you're doing talking with me, and you don't look like you have less energy. I look like I don't have energy. I'm sitting, I'm trying very hard to just sit on in this chair, but you don't look like you don't have energy. I mean, you're like as good as normal.
I, again, I said it's unexplainable. It's one of those unexplainable powers of the universe, and you don't realize it in your own life, Rehan, until you do this. So, hey, I know a lot of colleagues that are pastors, and they're obese, and they don't exercise, they don't fast. They're out of gas by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They got to go down and take a nap. And I'm always saying, bro, my dear friend, you need to get healthy. Let me be your health coach. And, it includes fasting, but let me show you a better way. So, yes, and not only that, uh, I have a tendency because of my ethnicity. The Irish have a long history of anger, alcoholism, and high blood pressure. I have all those genes right now coursing through my body. So, what do you have to do? You have to control those, I'll call them those ethnic sins. And, the Irish, they love to fight. And when they say, let's bury the hatchet, they bury it in your head. So, and both of my parents died from alcohol. They were Irish. Uh, and then we've got anger and alcoholism, and in my genes, and so and hypertension. So I have a tendency to be hypertensive. I took my blood pressure the other day. It was 102 over 58. Now, if you walk in a doctor's office at 67 years old and you have the hypertension genes coursing through your body and you get a 102 over 58, you'll be like, how do you do it? Well, I say a long-term fast. My primary physician, he doesn't know how I do it. And I said, you're right, doc. It's unexplainable. So you do get weak at times when you stand up. Your blood pressure goes down. And you do get lightheaded. But other than that, remember, after the first 2 days, if you trained your mind, body, soul, spirit, after 2 days, it's like you feel, and then at the end of, on the 39th day, you feel like you could go another 20 days. And I'm serious about that. The last one I did, I actually went 42 days because I was banging on the door of heaven and I was asking God to do something. And on the morning of the 43rd day, I got a call from a news reporter, and he said to me, "Hey, Pastor, you know that justice issue you've been working on in New York City?" And it was over religious freedom, that people could worship freely and rent space in New York City public buildings. And the mayor Bloomberg was going to toss uh, 20 organizations, excuse me, 100 organizations and 20,000 people. And during that time, I prayed and fasted. At the end of the 40th day, when I'm taking, an hour or two a day in prayer, God just told me God said, go one more day. And, the other thing about long term fasting is, at least in my context and my bias, being a follower of Jesus, Messiah, you hear him talking to you. That's why I said earlier, Rehan, about moving into the spiritual realm outside the human realm. How often do we get into the spiritual realm? And I'm not saying that as a prideful thing. I'm just saying it happens to me. So I went another day, and this is how big this battle was, Rehan. We were at the level of the United States Supreme Court. Imagine that. This was not some little, territorial battle. We went through the entire court system in the city of New York. Then we went to the state system, and it took 6 years. 6 years. We finally get to the U.S. Supreme Court level. So the 42nd day, Jesus Messiah speaks to me and says, "My son William, go one more day." I'm like, "Lord, are you kidding me?" I mean, I cried out to God and I said, what is being expected of me? Well, I want to be obedient, right? So I went one more day. The next morning on the 43rd day, Rehan, a Associated Press reporter, editor from Washington, D.C., called me and he said, "Hey, Pastor William, did you hear the news?" I was like, "No, what news?" I was, in a meeting. And he said, "You won the court case." I was like, "What? We did?" At the U.S. Supreme Court level. I won't get into all the details. It's a fantastic story. But imagine that on the 43rd day. I'm glad that I listened to God. And so, that's another example besides East Bacot, New York City. And remember, who were we going up against? The world, Mike Bloomberg, who's, he's a friend now. We went up against the world's wealthiest mayor. He has 12 billion in the bank, Rehan. And he's also, at the time, the 12 years he served as our mayor of New York City. And I love him. He did a very good job of being the mayor. I couldn't do it. He's also at that time, the world's most powerful mayor. He was in the crossroads of the world, New York City. And so I said to all the people that were getting thrown out by mayoral decree, I said, "Look, we're not going to win with money. We're not going to win with marketing. We're not going to win with public relations. We may not even win with public support, although most of the city council was with us and the public was with us." I said, "The only way we're going to win this for the glory of God is by prayer and fasting." And I said to these 100 heads of organizations, I said, "I'm going to lead the way, and I'm going to start a fast. I'm not sure how long I'll go, but as I just said, I went on the 43rd day. The answer came. Is that powerful or what? I mean, that's powerful. Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff.
So when you do this, does your pulse rate drops or does it remain the same?
Oh yeah, I'm taking my pulse normally runs about 65. Because I'm in good shape as a 67-year-old. Thanks be to God. I'm taking my pulse right now. I would say I've dropped 20 beats per minute. I'm probably at 45 right now. 45. So
So
yeah,
your heart working less, which means it will last longer because you're not using it as much.
yeah, I'm doing my carotids now. And yeah, I'm probably about 45. But isn't that like any other machine? I mean, if we use a pump less, it's probably not going to break. If we drive our car less, it's probably not going to, So I'm all about living life in radical, reckless, and raw ways, the 3 R's of faith in praxis. People, something like this, you can't keep to yourself.
How many people do you think have you convinced to do the 40-day fast so far?
Over the last number of years, I think there's three. There's three. I don't want to embellish on that figure. But
and for 10 days fast?
Yeah. Many people will do 3, 5, and 10. That's pretty normal. But then they'll, again, if you haven't really practiced good, and when people think of discipline, they think of like eating broccoli. Who likes broccoli? People in America, they don't like broccoli unless you dump a lot of cheese on it. So they're thinking about something that smells bad, discipline, or thinking that something that is not good. And we discipline our children, so that's what they think discipline is. But no, this is good. I put the emphasis on the word good. It's good discipline. It's healthy discipline. So yeah, you can probably go 3 to 5 days without discipline training in fasting, and then you're going to be so weak and so famished that you're not going to be able to do it. And that's why, as I explained earlier, you really need to build up to it. Just like if Rehan, if you were going to run a marathon and you said, well, when's the marathon? Yeah, I'd love to. And they would say, well, it's tomorrow. How many miles could you get, Rehan? What if they say, yeah, it's a year from today. It's July 1st, 2020. And then, you have a opportunity to train. And so, yeah, you can pretty much go 3-5 days, but after that, you're not going to feel well. Yeah.
So I will try to make myself and yourself a promise, or I don't know what's the lesser promise, that I will try my best to do a 40-day fast, and I would like your mentorship and guidance for it. I would like you to be my teacher for it because I don't know anybody else who has done it. And you already reduced it in 8 billion people. You got 3 people to convince to do it in the first place. So I would like to build the muscle because I'm a very lazy person. I don't like to exercise, but I can go ahead without eating. So I think I enjoyed my 3 day, 3.5 day fast a lot, and I could have gone further, but I gave up because I was thinking of traveling. I went a week, and actually it helped me a lot. I got more energy. I did stuff which I had never done in my life, like exercising after the second day. It did give me a lot of migraine in the first day and second day, which was fantastic because then I slept a lot, I meditated a lot. I think, I mean, I get migraines every month anyway, so I take them as a blessing, as a reboot for my system. They come to me, and I just do nothing and just sleep, and they go away. And it's like I take it as my body telling me to slow down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I would like to make an offer that if you are interested, we can maybe make a club out of this on social media where you
Sure.
can enter people who want to do a 2 day fast, a 5 day fast, a 10 day fast, and a 40-day challenge.
Yes.
And are you doing this every year, 40 days, or is it every 5 years, or what's the story there?
Yeah. There's really no schedule. I mean, I could. Good.
Here's another one.
Imran, thank you. Thank you. If you want to tag along with me even now and see if you can go to July the 6th,
Yeah.
I would say start now. Start now. So no, I haven't done it for 8 years, but now I'm committed to doing it probably every couple of years. Because when you think about it, if you're fasting 3 days out of every week and you multiply that times what, 52 weeks in a year. I don't know what 52 times 3 is, but then you get the number of days that you've actually fasted on an intermittent level, not all at one fell swoop. But then that's given you the opportunity to train yourself, to get in touch with God, and also to reboot your immune system. And I would encourage your viewers to go to Google Scholar. I mean, there was an article about 3 weeks ago in the New York Times, the revolution of intermittent fasting. And so people want now, in the age of COVID and who knows what else is coming along, SARS, swine flu, etc. We should have stronger immune systems. And that's also what I do in my health coaching is I'm right there, and I'll do it with you, Rehan. Thank you for your commitment. A step down from a promise is a commitment. And then that at the tertiary level, then it's an agreement. So I'd be happy to mentor you. And putting up the Facebook page is excellent, excellent. And, I never
What-
thought having a Facebook group just alone on fasting. And I think we ought to do it because, again, when you look at the United States, you look at Mexico, I think Mexico is actually ahead of the US on obesity, and which is sad. And, it gives you a shorter lifespan when you're so obese. So I'd be happy to walk alongside you, as I say, Rehan. And I also encourage people not only go to Google Scholar, type in intermittent fasting. You're going to see a lot of different stuff, but I'll try to get maybe 5 or 10 articles that talk about the reboot of the immune system. I'll send that to you as a link, and then people can say, hey, it not only has spiritual benefit, but it also has medicinal benefit as well. So let's
I,
start a Facebook group. Thank you very much, Rehan, and thank you for having me on today.
okay, do you mind if we make another group on WhatsApp also?
Yeah,
Or
yes, exactly. That'd be great.
because if we do that, you will be getting a lot of messages on WhatsApp. That's why I was wondering if you are okay and comfortable with that. Not a lot, but sometimes people, have questions, and your number can kind of gets exposed that way. So if it's okay with you,
We'd love to do it. Along with real, authentic, and genuine, we also have to be transparent, right? We, I want to be infectious. You can be infectious in a bad way. Think COVID-19, but then you could be infectious in a good way. And I want my joy, my power, my love, grace, and mercy, as Jesus Messiah taught. I want that to infect other people as well. So WhatsApp, Facebook, you're the brain trust on that, Rehan. And I've got as I showed this morning, I've got the book right here.
thank you.
So, all
Pastor,
right.
I think we should create something of a competition or a challenge so that what we can do is we can convert it into every month you have to or there will be a collective challenge of every week challenge, every month challenge, every 6 months challenge, and every year challenge. So in every year, if you know people who would like to go for 40 days or 20 days, we can create like a marathon, just like you have a marathon, like make a game out of it.
Yeah.
So you have a triathlon, you have a marathon, you have all those systems. You can create similar things inside the fasting system. And Muslims, as you know, fast for 30 days a year, anyways. So when you're fasting in Ramadan, it's impossible to find food. It's a whole ceremony of eating, of not eating. And what we need to modify in that is that when people open their fast, they go crazy and they eat a lot during that time. And if we can only tweak that to, okay, you can open your fast, but don't eat for 16 hours, because that is when ketosis starts. And when the ketosis process starts, the whole immune system gets reboot and your body becomes fantastic. So sometimes the fasting goes on for 12 hours, sometimes it's for 14 hours. But if we can make this into a process, and I would love that you could support us on it, that we can convert, even we can guide Muslims that, if you're fasting anyways, you might as well do it once a day instead of eating a lot. And then you can also go on and do the whole 30 days without any food, just do water after when you open. But it
Yeah.
becomes more challenging because you don't get to drink water in daytime also. So we can play on that. But I think if you can fast every year to a certain number, because you're already doing it.
Yes.
And I saw another group on here already on Facebook, which has 11,000 members already. It's a fasting group, but it's a private group. I will go inside and study it and see what's happening. But we can make a Devlin challenge, which can be something like, instead of a marathon, we can call it, it's a Devlin challenge, where you go for 40 days of fasting on water every year or every 3 years or once a marathon. It's up to you how long you want to do it. But we can call it, Devlin's challenge or William challenge, whatever you want to call
Well,
it.
a fastathon, a fastathon.
Okay,
But
let's just
we need
yeah,
some,
we can plan.
but yeah, yeah,
By creating a system allows, I think when you have processes, the things become easier and faster, and people are able to organize themselves faster. And once you have a group of people, like once we start your group, and as you saw just from one Facebook Live, we have 4 people already saying I'm going to do this.
I
Because
know.
I have committed myself to do a 10 days, but today I'm committing myself to a 40-day fast because of you, because I've never heard it's even possible. So once somebody is your role model, and you can always copy them, you can always learn from them, you can always take mentorship and guidance from them.
Thank
Um, One question: after you open the 40-day fast, do you go easy on the food? Do you what's the process there? Because I was told on a 10-day fast you should eat fruits only for the 11th day and go easy on the stomach because the stomach hasn't eating anything. So can you tell us a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I mentioned it briefly earlier, but again, that's part of the training because you don't want to engorge yourself. And by the way, I remember I was working as a volunteer in the Babalahawa Hospital in Syria. It's right on the Syrian Turkish border. And so I had been volunteering there. Uh, I had crossed over from Turkey and then went into Syria. And it was during the civil war, which is still going on. And during that time, it was Ramadan. So I always used to say that, I would see the hospital staff come down to the table that was set. And they were, they've been fasting all day. And then right when the word was given, hey, we can eat now, it was like everybody ran to the table for the Eid. And then, of course, about 2 o'clock in the morning, after we got done with rounds and, serving the patients there that were wounded, and then 2 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock, before the sun rose, then we go down to the cafeteria again and have another meal. But yeah, when you get done with a 40-day fast, remember, the longer and the more intensely you do good to your human body, the longer you're going to last. And so, yeah, when you stop, I mean, that's why many years ago I gave up meat, I gave up sugar, I gave up candy, I gave up sweets. So at a birthday party, no cake for me. I don't do desserts at all unless it's a healthy dessert. And again, I did that as a move many years ago to remember the poor. So that would be another one. But yeah, start with something that would be basic, like an applesauce. And then the next day, begin having fruit. Just be careful of the fruit you eat because you don't want to eat a lot of acidic fruit like oranges, like tangerines, like grapefruit. You want to get a fruit that doesn't have a lot of acid in it. And then you'll learn, like, what you can eat. I normally break the fast with applesauce and oatmeal. Oatmeal, and you got to watch out for dairy too, because when you haven't had dairy, and particularly if you're lactose intolerant, I mean, you're going to blow up your system in not a good way. You'll get diarrhea, you'll get stomach cramps, etc. So I always tell people, stay away from dairy, particularly if you're lactose intolerant. Stay away from acidic foods, stay away from meat. Just something plain and basic like oatmeal, cream of wheat, cream of rice. Don't dump any sugar in it. If you want to have some honey, that's fine. Don't pour milk in it. And so those are the ways. Again, you're training your body, and you're not hurting your body, and you're not putting in a lot of fat and stuff that your stomach is and your intestines are not going to be able to digest after that long-term time of going 40 days without food. So now when you go into a fast, it's radical, right? You just stop eating. The curtain comes down for your stomach and your system. The show is over. The show's not going to open up until 40 days later. Then we'll have a matinee. And so, yeah, you can, again, I've trained myself to where I could have a decent meal the night before, and then beginning at midnight, that's it. And then you go for 40 days. So, but when you come out, you just have to be careful.
So the spelling for fastathon, it looks like to me is FASTATHON. Is that correct?
If you want to call it that, sure, that's fine. Yeah, I'll try to think of some more perhaps creative names, but you know, learning how to fast, learn how to change the world through fasting, change the world through fasting. You know, that's what, and I encourage everybody to get that very inexpensive book, God's Chosen Fast, because there are stories in there of people that have changed the world fasting. So there's not only a ideology behind it, but there's also practical examples. So change the world through fasting. I kind of like that. You know, fastathon has a little bit of it sounds gimmicky. You know what I mean? In my personal humble opinion. So change the world through fasting, or get healthy through fasting. Uh,
But I'm trying to give it a gimmicky thing,
oh,
so
you
that
are. Then call it fastathon. Yeah, that's fine. You're trying to give it a gimmicky thing. I got it. Okay.
because what is a fastathon? So people have something to talk about.
Yeah.
As a marketeer, I would, as if I put in my marketing hat on, then it has to be a one-word thing like Googling or Yahooing
Yeah.
or tweeting, or blogging. So it has to be one-word thing. What is that? It doesn't has to mean anything. Eventually, it becomes something. And just like a triathlon or what was the other one? Like I mean,
Marathon.
marathon. And I don't know where it comes from, but somebody just came up with a word. Let's say I'm going for a marathon.
You just sold me with your stellar. Remember earlier, Rehan, I called you the brain trust. So with your stellar marketing and public relations brain, let's go with Fastathon. I love it. I love it.
Unfortunately, it's already taken by somebody.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm going to open up and see what's fastground.com.
Wow.
Maybe something already doing because there's a lot of I have been seeing a lot of ads about fasting and intermediate fasting, and a lot of people are talking about it because I've been posting about it. Somebody has the domain already, and I will try to buy it off them so that we can see what can be done. We'll make an offer and see what happens.
Okay.
You
Thank.
can pay
Thank.
for it.
Is it a .com or .org or dot?
All three are gone for now.
All three, even a .info.
I didn't look for .info, but I think since nobody's using, they will sell it to us for a few dollars. It's
All
okay.
right. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Um, so I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and everybody who watched. I would like to request and suggest that Pastor William is available. He is weak. He's not leaving his house, so you might as well catch him, do another interview with him, learn about him in your own way, in your own fashion. Today was kind of an introduction so that we can do. I have already made the WhatsApp group. It's already in the description. You can go and click on it to join the group. Pastor is already inside that group, so you guys can join in. 250 people. No advertising there, please. It's going to be all about this, and maybe we can. Pastor can guide us that Pastor, which day a week do you normally not eat? Oh, you said Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, Saturday, Sunday, little bit into Monday, right? Yeah, and that's a good time to start. You know, you have to have a predetermined time. Like, sitting here, your viewers may say, "Well, when do I start?" Uh, when can you start is my question that I always ask people, and I say, get that predetermined mind. Write it down. Uh, have someone, and here's another part of it. When I started this, I had other people in my network of followers that that they held me accountable, and then they would call me up. Hey, did you start your fast? And I'm like, yeah, I did. Or write it down in your calendars and say, hey, this is the time I'm going to start. If you want to start 12 hours, 24 hours, this is the meal I'm going to miss. Write it down and make a agreement, a commitment to yourself, a
And to
promise,
your
covenant.
and to your mom, because they would feed. Oh yeah, you have to eat this food.
Yeah,
Or your wife.
your mom, right? And just and stick to it, and then share with another person. I've been accountable to people in my life for 49 years after I had that transformational experience. And so I'm always accountable to somebody, whether it's my board of directors, my fellow pastors, my bride, my 5 children, my sons, my daughters, 2 sons, 3 daughters, and other men outside my family. In fact, I meet with a gentleman for 1 hour every week in the 168 hours a week that God has given us. And because I don't watch television as well, then I have all kinds of time. I can give myself to people. But yet that 1 hour that I meet with my brother Jim, my Jesus brother, as I call him, it's not negotiable. It might be midnight, it might be 6 o'clock in the morning, and he holds me accountable to my fasting and my life. My actually, he holds me accountable. I'm big on acronyms, but he holds me accountable to the what I call the 4 F's: family, faith, finance, and fitness. Those are the 4 F's. So yeah, whatever you need to set up, I'm willing. I'm willing to walk alongside people, not in front of them. Sometimes I need to walk behind, to give a little, what I call a holy push. So, but I'll walk alongside you, and you particularly, Rehan. Thank you.
I want you to end this by saying, if you want to change the world, you need to start by changing yourself. And as you were saying, before you make a commitment, do a 5-day fast so that you're mentally strong and your body is strong and you're healthy, and you know that you're going to keep yourself accountable.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Thank
Not
you.
exactly. You can say that one by.
Okay. So I want you to make a commitment, an agreement, a promise, a covenant with yourself that you're going to commit to a 5-day fast. You can follow me on the 5-day fast. Jump on that WhatsApp group right now, and you can follow me. And any questions you have, if you become discouraged during that time, because what's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to change the world and to have a healthy body, a healthy mind, a healthy soul, and a healthy spirit. That's the goal we have to have. So once you get on WhatsApp, you're making a commitment to me, to Rehan. It'll be a mutual commitment. I'm going through till 12 midnight on Tuesday, July the 7th. I still keep a full schedule, but we're going to change the world, and we're going to change ourselves. I thought I was smart because I wanted to change the world, but then I became wise and I knew I needed to change myself. Amen. So did I listen to you carefully, Rehan, and memorize it?
It's not my quotation; it's a quotation by Rumi, and I would like to make you one more request to do a small prayer before you.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's. I bow my head and I close my eyes when I pray, and I pray to my Father in heaven. Father in heaven, we just thank you for giving us the opportunity to be alive today. You've given us a gift today, and that's why we call it the present, because every day is a present. It's something we can unwrap. And you, God, have so many surprises. You have so many joys. Even when we go through difficult times, God, we want to receive them as friends, those difficult times, and not reject them as intruders. And so, thank you so much for my dear friendship with Rahan, that meeting we had early February of 2020. And it's brought us to this fruition. And we're so thankful, God. And also for the viewers, I pray for them that you would give them the strength, the fortitude, the fidelity, the power the love, grace, and mercy to start on this journey of a fast. And God, Jesus Messiah, ultimately, we pray that we can change the world, just as Gandhi did with the liberation, just what Dr. King did for civil rights for African Americans. Lord, those were revolutions, and we know that there's many other revolutions simply because of fasting. So thank you for this opportunity for all of us to be on together. We pray for the success going forward with Fastathon, the WhatsApp, the Facebook, etc. And again, thank you for this time together. Thank you for Rehan and our friendship. And I pray this in the name of Jesus Messiah. And all God's people said, Amen.
Amen.
Okay, thank you. Love you, Rehan. Thank you. Bye for now.